Steve here again with the Exodus Project. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Isaiah 7:14 and how studying this passage of Scripture a bit more deeply was one of the reasons I reject and left Christianity. But before I get started, everyone, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and give me a big thumbs up. Okay, so everyone knows that in Christian tradition, Christian theology, the New Testament, that Jesus was born of a virgin. That's Matthew and Luke. And they trace it back to Isaiah 7, is where they say the prophecy comes from. But when we look at Isaiah 7 a bit more closely, and this is really what changed my mind, we can see that it's not talking about a virgin at all. So before I even get into the young woman Alma versus virgin Betula topic, I just want to talk about the context for a few minutes, because the context doesn't make sense if it's a virgin. So a little bit of background. Ahaz, the father of Hezekiah, was under attack by two kings. And of course he was worried about it. Ahaz wasn't a very holy man. He did a lot of bad things. So Isaiah comes up to comfort him. So that's just the little bit of background. So Isaiah meets him at this washer's pool, and he brings his wife along with him, his pregnant wife. And I'm going to start reading at Isaiah 7:11. So Isaiah says to Ahaz, he says, "Ask for yourself a sign from God. Ask it either in the depths or in the heights above." And Ahaz responds, "I will not ask. I will not test the Lord." 13. And he said, "Listen now, O house of David. Is it little for you to weary men, that you weary my God as well?" 14. Therefore the Lord of his own shall give you a sign. So now, pause. Isaiah is outright telling Ahaz that he's going to see something. He's going to receive a sign. Right? This is to Ahaz, a man who, the things of godliness are the last thing on his mind. He's in the middle of a siege by these two kings, one of which is the king of the northern kingdom, Israel, and the other is the king of Aram, Syria. So he's under siege, right? So the last thing on his mind is being godly. I'm sure he almost saw this to be like a nuisance that Isaiah is coming to him with news, right? So Isaiah is saying, the Lord is going to give you a sign. That's important because it's something he has to be able to see, something he has to tangibly understand, a reminder. So he says, "Therefore the Lord of his own shall give you a sign. Behold, the young woman," in Christian Bibles that's translated as virgin, "behold, the young woman is with child." So I'll concede. I'll read it as virgin and we'll see if it makes sense. "Therefore the Lord of his own shall give you a sign. Behold, the virgin is with child, and she shall bear a son, and she shall call his name Emmanuel. God, cream and honey he shall eat when he knows to reject bad and choose good. For when the lad does not yet know to reject bad and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread shall be abandoned." Okay, so what's the sign? Behold, the young woman is with child. Behold, the virgin is with child, and she shall bear a son. She shall call his name Emmanuel. That's the beginning of the sign. Cream and honey shall he eat when he knows to reject bad and choose good. For when the lad does not yet know to reject bad and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread shall be abandoned. The land he's talking about, obviously, is the conquested land that these two kings are inhabiting as they are sieging the kingdom of Judah, Ahaz's kingdom, right? So they're at war. They're actively being sieged. They're under attack. So cream is something that requires a little bit of work. If you're under siege, you're not out milking cows. You're not out churning butter and making cream. And honey, you're not running an apiary out in the fields if you're under siege, right? These are foods. I mean, we see in earlier books that Israel is a land of milk and honey, right? Abundance. It's showing that these are foods that are synonymous with abundance, surplus of food, right? When you're under siege, you're just worried about getting water and a morsel of bread, right? So if the sign is for Ahaz, an ungodly man, and before the child can even reject bad and choose good, which means he's still pretty young, right? It's going to be over. The two kings are going to be gone. So if we equate this to Jesus, that's 700 years later. What comfort is Ahaz going to get from that? None, right? If Isaiah walks up to Ahaz and says, a virgin is going to bear a son, but it's going to be 700 years from now, so don't worry. If he's in the middle of an imminent threat from two hostile nations, what comfort does the birth of a baby 700 years in the future give to a man who has really no mind for spiritual things in the context of this verse to begin with? So as we can see, contextually, it just doesn't work. It's clear that this is something contemporary. It's Isaiah talking about his own son that in the very next chapter, it's the same child. Isaiah has a name for him prophetically, as his other children have, and his wife, who is the young woman in this verse, has a name for him also. And the name is important, Emmanuel. God is with us, right? So it's to show. And another important point is that Isaiah was from the house of David. So he was related to the kings. So he was always in the palace. So of course, Ahaz would see this kid running around, right? It would actively be in his mind, oh, when I see this kid, I know that not too long from now, this siege is going to be over and we're going to be taken care of. Right? So we see that this is a contemporary sign, something Ahaz can see. And because if the prophecy in 14 is 700 years in the future, then what's even the point of 15 and 16? Cream and honey shall he eat when he knows to reject bad and choose good. For when the lad does not yet know to reject bad and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread shall be abandoned. What's the point in that? There's no legitimate reason to have 15 and 16 there if 14 is 700 years in the future. Also, if it is Jesus who could not sin, why would he have to reject bad in the first place? He didn't have any capacity to sin according to the New Testament. So even then, 15 is even more relevant if this is a 700-year prophecy in the future about a virgin that'll give birth. So we just see contextually it doesn't work. So now we'll get to the young woman virgin debate. So everyone knows, or at least anyone who is interested in this topic, that Alma, which Christian Bibles often translate as virgin, means young woman. The masculine version is Elim, which we see David referred to also. So I just want to point out another use in the Bible of this word Alma, and contextually how it shows that it can't mean virgin in the context. The Hebrew word for virgin is betula, which isn't used here, right? So I'm going to turn everyone's eyes now to Proverbs 30, 18 through 20. So the speaker says, "There are 3 things that are concealed from me, and 4 that I do not know. The first one, the way of the eagle in the sky. The second one, the way of a serpent on a rock. Third, the way of a ship in the heart of the sea. And 4, the way of a man with a young woman, Alma." Verse 20, "Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eats and wipes her mouth, and she says, 'I have committed no sin.'" So what is this talking about? 20, as I said, the way of an adulterous woman. She eats, which is basically saying committing the act of adultery is the eating here, metaphorically, wipes her mouth, she cleans herself up, and says, "I've committed no sin." So how is that related to 18 and 19? 19 specifically. So an eagle in the sky, when it's flying around, did you have if you didn't see it 5 minutes ago, would you have any idea where it came from or where it went? Does the sky leave a trace that the eagle was there? No. The way of a serpent on a rock. So if a snake, sitting on a rock, and it slithers away, it's not like it's in the dirt. It doesn't leave a footprint, doesn't leave a trail. If it was sitting on a rock and slithers away, would you have even known it was there? No. The way of a ship in the heart of the sea. So as a ship goes by, 5 minutes later, once the wake is gone, would you have ever known that the ship was there? No, left no trace. And the way of a man with a young woman. Now this is the interesting one. So if it's a young woman, this is clearly insinuating that since the prior 3 things left no trace, would the way of a man with a young woman, would that leave a trace? With a virgin, yes, of course. Because, not to be crass, but we're adults. A virgin often bleeds during her first time. So that does leave a trace. You would know that someone was there. The hymen is broken. So you would know if it's a virgin you're with or not, right? So this is clear that this is a woman who has engaged in intercourse before. Because once the act is over, there's no trace. Such is the way of the adulterous woman, right? She has adultery, cleans herself up. It's the same way. No one would ever know. So it's pretty clear that Alma just means young woman. And it doesn't denote virginity, as we see pretty clearly from Proverbs 30 here. So, yeah, guys, in conclusion, contextually, Isaiah 7:14 doesn't work as a virgin birth prophecy. Ahaz was a man who he just really didn't care about godly things. He was living in the moment, did some pretty horrible things that we don't really need to get into. Just really the main takeaway is that Ahaz wasn't a very good, godly guy, wasn't a righteous guy, especially at the time of this passage. And Isaiah says, hey, God's going to give you a sign that soon, before this baby that my wife is going to have is old enough to reject bad and choose good, the siege is going to be over. So it would have to be a tangible sign. He's not referencing spirituality. This is something tangible he could see. And an unrighteous man, he really wouldn't care about a prophecy 700 years from now. He wouldn't get any comfort from that when the threat is imminent, right? And like I said, 15, 16 have really no purpose if the prophecy is 700 years in the future. And rejecting bad and choosing good, if Jesus was God incarnate, he had no capacity to sin, right? So he wouldn't have to reject bad. He could not possibly sin. So also another just another discrepancy there that shows that this was a contemporary word of Isaiah to Ahaz at the time to give him comfort and reassure him that, I made a promise with your father David, your forefather David, that your line will be preserved. I'm not doing it because of you. I'm doing it because of him. And, everything will be okay. And then Alma Betula, pretty clearly, Alma can mean someone who is not a virgin, as Proverbs 30, 19, and 20 shows. That the way of a man with a young woman, it leaves no trace. The way of a man with a virgin would, in fact, leave a trace. So, yeah, guys, until next time, I'm Steve. This is the Exodus Project, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks for watching.